What you're about to see may shock you. I've decided to embark on a journey to craft the perfect gym leader for every type in the game. I'm going type by type to build a full team of 6 Pokemon with thought out movesets, abilities, items, and more than anything, an emphasis on representing that type as best as possible. Last time we covered the Ghost type, and today we'll charge ahead and discuss our current type, Electric. Before we jump in, let's go over my guidelines for building these teams. This team will not include legendaries, mythicals, ultra beasts, Paradukes Pokemon, and any one of the generational gimmicks. In addition, Pokemon will not be repeated between teams, which may backfire later on, but f*** it, we ball. As for what is included, basically everything else. All learned moves, including level up, TMs, egg moves, and even ones removed in recent generations. Pokemon can also have any of their abilities and any held item. And on that note, I'll try and show off a variety of sets, so don't expect me to put 6 Choice Scarfed Volt Switchers on the team. Lastly, these videos have 2 goals. Build a diverse and well-balanced monotype team, and build a team that represents its type as best as possible. With all that established, let's talk about the Electric type. Considered by some to be the unofficial 4th starter type, Electric holds a very important place in both the franchise and the type chart. Starting with the IP itself, there's obviously the elephant in the room, or technically the mouse in the room, Pikachu. With the electric rodent being the franchise's mascot, the type itself is quite regularly in the spotlight, with
Pikachu! Use Thunderbolt!
Taking up real estate in the brains of many a Pokefan. With Pikachu being the franchise's golden boy, one might assume the type as a whole benefits from this extra attention. There's no way they would neglect the type and just focus on Pikachu, right? Yeah, let's just say there's a chance Pikachu might be hurting the type more than it's helping. But before I get to that, let's move on to some matchups. Electric is super effective on flying and water, not very effective on dragon, itself, and grass, and can't hit ground, which wouldn't you know, is the only type that hits it for super effective damage, while it resists itself, flying, and steel. My biggest takeaway here is how little Electric interacts with the rest of the type chart. Of the 7 types I mentioned, one of which is itself, there's only 2 that really warrant a second look. Despite a few others resisting Electric, ground is the only one that really shorts its circuit. While having a type be completely immune to you is never a great thing, in my opinion, the trade-off of ground being its only weakness is well worth it. And as we saw with the normal type, it's a lot easier to build around a weakness if you only have one. The second type to note is water. As many of you know, water is the most common type in the game, with nearly 1 in every 7 Pokemon being water type. Not only that, it's a type that's performed well for generations, with the aptly named bulky waters becoming a staple in the competitive space. With Electric being one of the 2 types that hits water for super effective, powerful Electric Mons have been a mainstay in the metagame for quite some time. Pokemon like Tapu Koko, Regieleki, and Raging Bolt are some of the best examples out there, as they can immediately threaten bulky waters like Dondozo, Alomomola, and Toxapex, as well as defensive flyers like Skarmory and Corviknight. Before their time, Pokemon like Zapdos, Raikou, and Thundurus were at the forefront, dealing with threats like Calm Mind Suicune. This is great and all, but it does bring attention to something troubling for this video in particular. Based on my rule set, every electric type I just mentioned is unavailable for our team. In fact, this knocks out nearly 20% of all electric types off the bat. And unfortunately, the remaining 80%, let's just say they're not the brightest bulbs in the box. A lot of this has to do with Electric's overall base stats, as they rank horribly in everything but speed and special attack, despite the numerous legendaries trying to bring up the average. And this is where I once again need to bring up our friend, Pikachu. With Game Freak's borderline absurd dedication to making a new Pikachu clone in every generation, the electric type itself is overrun with mediocre rodents that drag down the average. Now you might be thinking, Shep, isn't that a bit dramatic? Pikachu clones don't make that big an impact, right? I mean, how much of the type do they really make up? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you count every electric type that's in the Pikachu clone category, including evolutions and pre-evolutions, they also make up nearly 20% of electric types. Let that sink in. There's as many rare and godly electric deities as there are stupid buck-toothed copycat rodents. With over a third of electric types in one of these 2 groups, and even more not fully evolved, the actual options for this team were pretty limited. In fact, on paper, this might be the weirdest looking team I've put together to date. I wasn't kidding in the beginning. What you're about to see may shock you. But if it doesn't, you should subscribe. My dog and I would both appreciate it. Okay, I promise we'll get to the team soon, but I do want to rapid fire a few other things off before we start. So let's do a quick lightning round. Let's do a quick lightning round. 1. Electric is the second fastest type overall, and as such, our team will focus a lot on speed, as well as speed control, as many of the type's moves center on slowing the opponent down or crippling them with the paralysis status. 2. The type skews more towards special attacking, not only in way of stats, but in moves as well, as Electric is notorious for having subpar physical options, while the special side is sitting pretty with Thunderbolt, as well as Volt Switch, the type's premier pivoting move that's only aided by their focus on speed. 3. While Electric Terrain is a great field effect for the type to take advantage of, due to its limited availability, I don't think it's worth centering the team around. Although I will admit, a team with primarily electric types, as well as a few others to take advantage of the terrain, would make for a great team. It's just not my focus today. And 4. In terms of characterizing the gym leader themselves, the most common thread amongst most electric leaders is that they're eccentric? Whether they're hyperfixated on the military or streaming, a super nerd who's too smart for their own good, or just Santa in the off-season, they're all very into their specialized topic. And our electric leader would be the same. In short, that's enough for us to jump in, so let's give a thunderous applause to our first team member, the Elespider Pokemon, Galvantula. One of my personal favorites, this arachnid serves as a great lead for a number of reasons, the most notable of which is the move, Sticky Web. Now you might be questioning my choice to include the bug type entry hazard since I've made it a point to save type-themed features for their appropriate team. And while I do stand by the decision to not give it to Smeargle in the normal team, I think it's completely appropriate here. As I said earlier, Electric is not just about speed, but speed control, and Sticky Web is exactly that. If anything, a top-tier Electric gym leader would probably have a field effect that automatically lowers the speed of your entire team, kind of like how totems in Sun and Moon immediately gain a stat boost. Honestly, if it were up to me, Galvantula's signature move Electro Web would set up Sticky Web the moment it's used, just like Stone Axe or Ceaseless Edge. But regardless, Spider, Webs, deal with it. Of the two Electric-type web setters, Galvantula is better for this team due to its stat spread making it a solid lead. It's fast enough to get the webs up and can deal a bit of damage with its decent special attack stat. And with that special attack stat, along with the ability Compound Eyes to boost our accuracy, we can launch off powerful thunders with 91% accuracy. In addition, it'll have Bug Buzz to round out our dual stab, and Energy Ball to hit the ground types that threaten our team, which thankfully Galvantula isn't weak to. As for an item, while Galvantula is likely fast enough to reliably set up Sticky Web, its defenses are also frail enough to warrant holding the Focus Sash, just to be safe. It's quite the standard lead set, but it doesn't need to be anything flashy. Even if it just sets up webs and gets off one good hit, it'll set up the team beautifully. By the way, I wasn't kidding about that Electro Web thing, it should definitely set up Sticky Web when used. Someone passed this info along to Game Freak at once, thank you. Next up is a Pokemon that I kind of overlooked for a previous team, and while I feel bad for snubbing it then, I think its placement here worked out for the best. That would be the Sphere Pokemon, Hisuian Electrode. Now, I'll be honest, I really don't like the Electrode line. I've talked shit on them in the past, as I think their stat spread is lackluster, their move pool is limited, and design-wise they're about as creative as putting googly eyes on a rock. Okay, no wait, that's pretty f***ing cute. All that aside, I can't ignore that Hisuian Electrode's addition of the grass type is a huge step in the right direction. Gaining a secondary stab that threatens Electric's one shortcoming definitely helps. And while I still don't love its stat spread, its blistering 150 base speed, along with a not completely unusable special attack stat, makes Electrode a decent option for revenge killing, as long as you give it a life orb or something for some extra damage. As for moves, first would be Volt Switch, allowing Electrode to do what it does best as a fast pivot. Second would be Giga Drain, both hitting ground types and healing off the life orb damage we'd be taking. Third would be Leaf Storm, simply to be a nuke button. You know, as much of a nuke as 80 special attack can even be. And lastly, a move you probably didn't expect, Electro Ball. While Thunderbolt is definitely the smarter pick due to Electro Ball's poor scaling, might as well have some fun, right? Between Sticky Web and the potential for paralysis across most of our team, maybe Electro Ball won't be too bad. As for an ability, all three are solid in their own ways, but Static is the most thematically appropriate, especially because it can only help the strength of Electro Ball. While I'm happy with this moveset for the team, Hisuian Electrode does have a number of good support options, such as Leech Seed, Taunt, Electric Terrain to boost the power of our moves, or even Grassy Terrain to weaken Earthquake and provide passive healing. Again, I still don't love either variant of this mon, but due to our limited options and the added benefit of the grass typing, it's actually a decent pick for this team in particular. That said, you could make the argument to throw Hisui and Electrode on the grass team and bring Rotom-Mow over to this one, but like I said, I think Electrode's placement here worked out for the best. As some of you might have guessed, part of the reason I'm happy to keep Rotom-Mow on the grass team is because it allows us to add a different Rotom to this team. Although technically I've never specified species clause, so this team could just be 6 Rotom, which would be pretty cool, but is also not really the point of this team. I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's talk about the laundry Pokemon, Rotom-Wash. It's no secret that this washing machine is the best Rotom appliance, as its dual typing along with the ability Levitate creates a perfect blend where grass is its only weakness. And even if it does face that one weakness, its defenses are solid enough to tank a few hits, and it can even deal some solid damage back with its 105 special attack. Especially since, as Rotom-Wash, it'll have Hydro Pump, making it the perfect check to ground types. Our next move would be Volt Switch, as pretty much any electric type is happy to have the pivoting move. Third would be Thunder Wave to spread around paralysis and indirectly make Electro Ball a bit stronger. I'm really putting a lot of stock into this Electro Ball idea. Will-O-Wisp is the standard status for Rotom-Wash, and it wouldn't be a bad pick, but you know. As for the last move, Pain Split is a good way to heal ourselves up a touch while also keeping the opponent low. And with leftovers in hand, Rotom-Wash takes the bulky pivot roll and runs with it. Or flies with it. Washes with it? I don't know. While it can run a number of different supporting options like Trick, Toxic, and Screens, or even go offensive with Nasty Plot, just like Galvantula, a standard moveset is all this team really needs. That said, if you wanted to go a little offbeat with the team, you could trade our Rotom-Wash out for an honorable mention, Bellibolt. Is this really a replacement for Rotom-Wash? No, not at all. But I did want to talk about it because it's pretty rare as far as electric types go. For one, it has really well-rounded defenses, with its 109 base HP greatly overshadowing Rotom's pitiful 50. Plus, it can still hit pretty hard with its 103 special attack. And unlike Rotom, who has to run Pain Split, Bellibolt gets access to Slack Off. And it even gets Muddy Water to hit ground types. Obviously, there's the big issue of being hit by ground types, which is why it could never replace the washing machine, but it does have Electromorphosis, which is quite an annoying ability if used properly. Again, I really don't think it's a replacement for Rotom-Wash, but with the right moveset, it could be a solid addition to this gym team. Plus, you have to admit, it is kind of cute, even if it's in a, oh my god, put it out of its misery, sort of way. Next on the team is one a lot of you probably expected, the Elefish Pokemon, Eelektross. Quick side note, between Elefish, Elespider, and Bellibolt being the Elefrog Pokemon, this type really needs to come up with a new naming convention. As an electric type with no weakness due to it possessing Levitate, Eelektross has always been a solid Pokemon, even if it's never been considered top tier. While this is in large part due to having no weakness, it's also because of its well-rounded stat spread, able to run either physical or special movesets quite freely, especially since it has a ludicrously wide move pool. Electric, Grass, Water, Fire, Fighting, Bug, Steel, Dragon, you name it, Eelektross probably gets it. Because of this, I had to take a step back and think about what role the team needs Eelektross to be, and after careful thought, I decided the best choice was to go with a coil set. Despite Assault Vest being a staple on this mon, our team could use a Pokemon that sets up, as well as a physical attacker, since everything so far hits on the special side. And even though its special move pool is a bit wider, it still has enough coverage options to help out our team. Our first attack is the new electric move, Supercell Slam. While I really don't love the potential recoil aspect of this move, the accuracy boost from Coil takes that out of the equation. And with Thunder Punch as our next best option, because I'm not running Wild Charge, it'll have to do. Game Freak, please give electric types better physical coverage, we're not asking you for much. Second would be Drain Punch, which provides us with nice coverage and keeps us healthy to boot. And lastly, you could either go Aqua Tail to hit ground types or Dragon Claw for the dragon types that resist our stab. Either option is fine, but I'd go with Dragon Claw simply because our team already has water coverage, and spoiler, it'll have more in just a bit. Finally, leftovers are the best item to keep the eel as healthy as possible. I truly can't say enough about Eelektross's crazy coverage. Even if this is a common pick for a perfect electric team, the moveset comes down to individual preference. It can run utility moves like Volt Switch, U-Turn, Knockoff, or Dragon Tail, coverage in Giga Drain, Flamethrower, Flash Cannon, or Acid Spray, or even run Blunder Policy Zap Cannon just for fun. Whatever spark of genius you have, Eelektross might be able to make it happen. While our next team member is also a bit on the slow side, the offensive presence it brings to the table is more than worth the trade-off. The Magnet area Pokemon, Magnezone. This heavy hitter is one of the few non-legendary, mythical, whatever, electric types that stayed in the higher tiers since its introduction. Part of this is due to its amazing stat spread, with great overall bulk and an incredible 130 special attack. Of course, this is at the trade-off of low speed, but between our team's chance to inflict paralysis and sticky web, Magnezone will have its chance to shine. And if it does get outsped, its ability Analytic will make it hit even harder. As for what it's hitting with, we have Thunderbolt, our most reliable electric stab, Flash Cannon for dual stab, and Volt Switch for pivoting around. The last move is a bit of a toss-up, and it really depends on the item Magnezone is holding. Signal Beam is one of the few coverage moves we have, and would work well on a Choice Specs variant. You could say the same for Hidden Power Grass or Hidden Power Ice, since remember, I am allowing moves from previous gens. But to my own surprise, I think the best final move for Magnezone is Body Press. I have my own personal gripes with this move, as I find it unfair that certain defensive mons are capable of so much damage output, but I can't deny that it's a great final move for Magnezone. Not only is it powerful coming off our base 115 defense, but having a strong physical move is handy if we come across a specially defensive monster. With that said, we have a lot of flexibility with our item. Choice Specs would still be fine, even if Body Press wouldn't get boosted. Life Orb is also a nice option so we can switch up moves, or even an Air Balloon would be good considering our 4x ground weakness. Personally, I'd go with the Salt Vest, the Ass Vest. I know Rotom-Wash and Electrode can take a hit, but our first two are quite frail, and our last one won't take a single hit, so a little extra bulk won't hurt. Alternatively, if you wanted something a bit faster that still had offensive presence, you could go with this honorable mention, Toxtricity. Its stats may not be as amazing as Magnezone, but the higher speed could make the difference in a lot of fights. Plus, it's a great user of the item Throat Spray, that boosts the user's special attack after using a sound move, which are also boosted by its ability Punk Rock. While Toxtricity could be great for this team, I still think Magnezone is better. I just wanted to mention Toxtricity at least once since it didn't make the cut for Poison either. But I'll be honest with you, whether we're talking about Magnezone or Toxtricity, neither are quite the nuke button that our last team member is. So I talk a lot about theming for these teams. After all, gym leaders are more than just good battlers. They represent the type they're using and show off what that type is capable of. And the true height of electric types is unironically stored in the mouse Pokémon, Pikachu. I know this sounds crazy, but I promise you it's not a meme pick. I truly think Pikachu is the best final member of the team, even better than something like Jolteon, and is worthy of being this team's ace. Now you might be thinking, Shep, didn't you say earlier that Pikachu was hurting the type more than helping? Why would you put this backstabbing, type-sabotaging, fame-mongering rodent on the team? And to that I say, damn, chill, it's not that serious. But I'd also say, that sure as hell helps itself. I'm of course referring to the item of the hour, Light Ball. If you're unaware, the Light Ball is a held item specific to Pikachu that doubles its attack and special attack. While you might think this doesn't mean much on such a mediocre stat spread, since it doubles the stat itself and not the base stat, the jump is pretty insane. For context, let's take Zekrom, the electric type with the highest base attack, at 150. A level 100 max attack Zekrom hits 438 attack. Meanwhile Pikachu, with its base attack of 55 and its trusty Light Ball, hits 458. Yes, Pikachu is stronger than Zekrom. And even though it's not that fast, as long as webs stay up, the mouse will massacre. Pikachu's special privilege doesn't just stop at the Light Ball, as it gets a few unfair things in the move department too. When it comes to moves, our first is of course, Pikachu! Use Thunderbolt! Second is one of our privilege moves, Surf, which allows us to nuke ground types. Shout out to Gen 1 for making them give Pikachu Surf. Third would be Alluring Voice, which may seem like an odd pick, but keep in mind that dragon types still resist us, and having some extra coverage for fighting in dark types won't hurt either. And finally, you could go with Grass Knot, maybe Extreme Speed, possibly even Fake Out, but I think we all know what this last move has to be.
What the? Incoming!
This move may be here for style points more than anything else, but also, could you imagine somebody making it through the first 5 Pokemon, only to get absolutely obliterated by Pikachu with Volt Tackle? I would be livid. Oh, and if any of you are sitting there still thinking I should have went with something like Jolteon, I could always trade out this Pikachu stats for the partner Pikachu stats from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. You thought Volt Tackle was bad coming off of 458 attack? Try 712. Better yet, keep the weird stat system from Let's Go and make it 874. Who's laughing now? I recognize that on paper, this team looks really funky. It looks like someone picked 6 electric Pokemon at random and just slapped them on a team. And while that may feel true, if you went to an electric gym and this was the team they threw at you, I bet you would have a bit of trouble. But hey, that's just my thought, so let me know what your perfect electric team would be in the comments. For those of you that do include Megas, you better give my boy Ampharos some respect, because I didn't. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out my Discord server if you haven't already, and as thanks for making it to the end of the video, here's a picture of my dog. Talk to y'all soon.